morning, everyone. We decided to hit record because Tara and I were talking, and we've talked about this so many times how we need to just start hitting record right away because we say like pretty much everything that's going on in our lives or like headlines or whatever. So, something interesting that happened on Friday is my daughter's school was under lockdown and it wasn't a drill. And the school, they did a great job. They were texting and calling like every, I don't know, 15 minutes to update the parents. And basically, what they had said was someone reported or called in that there was someone with a weapon that would be at the school. And you know, that's not really unusual. Like it has happened multiple times where there's been false threats and things like that. So, anyhow, it disrupted the entire school day. She was in her one class all day, couldn't go to practice after school. The sheriff's department came and had to physically like search all 2,000 kids. I mean, complete disruption, right? So this weekend, I'm on TikTok and like everyone's talking about the same thing. And people start saying, it's weird that on the same day, we're hearing from people in multiple states that all had the same exact threat where they had to shut down the school and someone had called in and said there was going to be a weapon. And last night, someone posted a map and it was actually a sheriff somewhere in Florida. It wasn't my sheriff. And he was saying that there was like 200 threats or something all across the United States, the same exact threat on the same exact day. And they showed a map and it was like mostly the East Coast. And so I'm like, what is going on? Are these just like who planned that? There's no way that's a coincidence, right?
I was going to say there's absolutely no way that that's a coincidence. And like, I would be thinking this has to be part of the gun control push. Like, how
That's
else
what
do
I
you
was
explain it?
thinking. Right. Because obviously, that's kind of a hot button topic on like gun control and everything. And right before an election, all of a sudden, all these schools get the same exact message. And it's like this huge disruption enough to like make the news. I'm like, that's not normal. That's
No,
not normal.
no,
So
it's
I
not
think
normal at all.
yeah, I think it is. I think it's totally political. I think someone is, setting the scene for why everyone should be afraid of guns right now before the election. That's my take on it. Because it is. Like that's the scariest thing as a parent when your kid's at school, you're not there to help them, and you get a call that there's a threat. I mean, it does induce fear, and we know that they want a lot of fear because that's how they manipulate people.
Well, it's inducing fear, but I think it's also an attempt to normalize this kind of reaction. And
Yeah, you're
let's
right.
take a look at
Conditioning.
what else happened like on Sunday, right? Like this has been quite the weekend. And this is like not even our topic for today, but obviously we need to talk about the second assassination attempt on Trump that occurred yesterday afternoon, also in Florida. He was playing golf at his golf course in West Palm Beach. And we were actually talking about what we were going to cover for the podcast when this happened. And Stephanie's like, "Oh my God, we should cover what's going on with Trump." And I was like, "No, I just got a notification on my phone that it was like it wasn't directed at Trump. It was an altercation between two other people and he wasn't the target. So, okay, not involving Trump." And then next thing I know, I'm getting news alerts that the Secret Service came out and they stated it was indeed an assassination attempt. It was a guy named Ryan Routh. He was apparently aiming a rifle at Trump through some bushes behind a fence at the edge of the golf course. And one of the Secret Service agents spotted the barrel of the rifle coming through the fence and he opened fire and then the suspect fled. And later at the scene, they found like a GoPro camera and two backpacks there. And apparently, a bystander took a picture of this guy getting into a black Nissan and got the license plate. So he was apprehended and identified pretty quickly. But this is the second assassination attempt on Trump in 2 months. And thankfully, both have been unsuccessful. And I don't think anyone's questioning the actions of the Secret Service this time because from everything I have seen and read, it seems like they did their job and they did it well. But what I think is pretty fucking insane, Stephanie, is that this doesn't seem to be a significant issue for the MSM to report on. It's like,
Yes,
yeah, like, oh, someone attempted to kill Trump, but he's fine. Nobody was hurt. Next. And like,
because they know
that's
it's gonna
it.
hurt. It's gonna not hurt Kamala, but like it's gonna boost Trump, just like last time. It's gonna give him more attention because when you and I were texting back and forth, um, a little while later, like I saw another notification. I think you had already gone to bed. And so I get on X and Benny Thompson, who's just like an influencer, he was doing a live stream covering it. And he kept saying over and over how he's like, how am I the only one covering this? None of the news networks are going live. None of them are reporting this stuff. He's like, I'm literally the first one reporting it. And I remember thinking the same thing. Like the MSM is like actively deciding not to make this a big issue.
Yes. And this is the second assassination attempt in 2 months on a former president and current presidential candidate. And frankly, I don't think it's going to be the last. But I do want to say what I find incredible yet again was Trump's response to getting shot at. Because again, he said, quote, I would like to thank everyone for your concern and well wishes. It was certainly an interesting day. Most importantly, I want to thank the U.S. Secret Service, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw and his Office of Brave and Dedicated Patriots, and all of law enforcement for the incredible job done today at Trump International in keeping me as the 45th President of the United States and Republican nominee in the upcoming presidential election safe. The job done was absolutely outstanding, and I am very proud to be an American, end quote. And he put that last sentence in capitals. And it's like, I just am so blown away by his patriotism and his thankfulness. And I mean, he could make it all about him and he doesn't, right? And it's
Yeah.
just amazing. And so, what did Kamala have to say? Well, first, she gave this very basic statement on X saying she was briefed on what happened and she's glad Trump's safe and violence has no place in our democracy. Like, basically, the most vile and insincere statement possible, right? And I am just so fucking glad that people were ripping into her on social media, slamming her for the hypocrisy, for saying, oh, I'm so glad he's safe after basically calling him a threat to democracy for the past few years. And there were hundreds of comments about how she and the progressive left are responsible for what happened, which they are, because they've been spewing the most insane and hateful rhetoric about Trump being the next Hitler and the biggest threat to democracy for years. And so, of course, then her team had to scramble to come up with another statement, attempting to sound a little more human. But Stephanie, tell me if you think this sounds any better. She said, quote, I am deeply disturbed by the possible assassination attempt of former President Trump today. I will be clear. I condemn political violence. We must all do our part to ensure that this incident does not lead to more violence, end quote.
She's pretty much basically trying to say there it's like Trump's fault. We all need to do our part, meaning like
Right.
Trump. This woman is freaking disgusting. I can't stand her. And yeah, I mean, all of the political rhetoric we have heard from her and the people on the left was exactly what this guy's spewing on his social media accounts. So it's like
Yeah.
clearly they're, causing people to have this reaction to Trump based on, their political witch hunt. I'm glad it happened in Florida though, because Ron DeSantis, he posted the state of Florida will be conducting its own investigation regarding the attempted assassination at Trump International Golf Club. The people deserve the truth about the would-be assassin and how he was able to get within 500 yards of the former president and current GOP nominee. So I'm glad it happened in Florida because I feel like they're gonna be able to do their own investigation because the FBI and the DOJ or whoever the hell is involved isn't gonna do shit because they haven't done shit about Butler. We haven't heard
No,
anything about that.
no, not at all. It just like it's off the radar, right? And I guess nobody wanted to disturb Biden and wake the president of the United States up from his afternoon nap because this happened at what, like 2 in the afternoon? He didn't make any kind of response until hours later when he gave like an equally insincere statement condemning political violence and commending the work of the Secret Service. But You know who did fucking say the quiet part out loud was fucking Elon Musk. And he said, huh, how interesting. Nobody's attempting to assassinate Biden or Kamala. Like, gee, I wonder why.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah, this will be interesting because there's a lot of shady stuff that's happened with the Butler assassination attempt,
Mhm.
and we'll see how quickly they try to sweep this one under the rug, but at least the guy's still alive so they can
Yeah.
question him and talk to him. They can't cremate the body immediately like they did with the
Right.
assassin in
And
Butler, Pennsylvania.
not tell anybody
Mhm.
in the investigation. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably end up having to do a full-blown episode because I'm sure a lot is going to come out over the
Yeah.
next few days on this guy and, after they question him. So it'll be interesting, but thank God Trump is okay and
Yeah.
he survived again. I mean, to say like this guy isn't somehow spiritually protected, like I'm not a super religious person, but man, like he's got someone watching out for him.
Oh, 100%. And it's like, I honestly, like, I just don't think this is going to be the last time. Like,
I know. Yeah.
it's, it's the closer we get to the election, the crazier things are getting. And like, to get to our actual topic today, which is still related to the left pretending that they care about and condemning political violence, which they're doing the exact opposite. So, what we originally prepared to talk about today was like the escalation going on in the war with Russia and Ukraine. And once again, who's at the center stirring the pot of political violence and pushing the envelope with provoking Russia? The fucking United States. So last Friday, Biden met with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House, and they were talking about whether Kiev should be allowed to strike targets inside Russia with long range missiles, which have already been provided to Ukraine by America and the UK. And before the meeting, White House National Security Spokesman John Kirby, he told reporters that no, we're not changing our policy right now. And, so far that policy has been not to approve of Ukraine using long range weapons, again, even though we've already given them to them. But British sources are reporting that Biden and Starmer already agreed on the use of British Storm Shadow missiles, and they're just not making it public yet. And the Daily Mail also reported that a Western official who asked to remain anonymous told PBS that the White House likely won't announce the approval for strikes until, quote, the first missile lands, end quote. Now, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I wouldn't put it past the Biden Harris admin to purposely escalate the conflict, especially right before the election.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we said on this podcast, they will use war as a way to not hold elections, just like Ukraine's doing. And I would sure as hell hope that they aren't approving long range missiles. I mean, as Trump said during the debate, like we're on the brink of World War III with a country that has nuclear weapons. Like, why the fuck do they insist on continually pushing the envelope? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all, and it's really alarming that it's getting to this point.
Have you been listening to all the podcasts that Tucker's been putting out lately?
Yes. Yeah, because
Okay.
he's on tour, like I think across the
Yes.
country. Hmm.
It is fucking amazing for anyone who's not listening. Like, you need to go check out these episodes because they've been incredible. And it's pretty much every day he's doing these interviews. And this past week, he interviewed Megyn Kelly and Dan Bongino, Charlie Kirk. And I don't remember which interview it was, but in one of them, they were talking about how, like, nobody in our government seems to be expressing any concern about how close we're getting to provoking war with Russia.
I
And
think
it's
I
like,
actually have a clip of
oh,
like
good.
part of that. I mean, he talked about it for a while, but yeah, I don't think anyone else makes a better point than Tucker, like in these whatever you want to call him that he's doing, because he is just kind of like stating things in very simple terms, but it's like he really makes you aware of how ridiculous it is and how terrifying it is, almost like that's what they want. Like that's what they
Yes.
are pushing us towards.
Yeah. And it's like these missiles that they're, focused on right now, the Storm Shadow. From what I understand, they're made by a company that's controlled by British, French, and Italian interests, and some of the components are made in the United States. So, according to an article in The Guardian, like all four countries have a right to veto whether they're used or not. And so far, the longest range missiles that NATO countries have supplied to Ukraine have come from the United States, the UK, and France. So, and we've given them like the ATACMS missile systems, and those have a range of approximately 200 miles. And the UK's Storm Shadow and France's Scalp cruise missiles both have a range of around 155 miles. Now, Moscow is apparently like 300 and some odd miles away. So these are technically not within that range. But Putin has already warned the deployment of long range missiles provided by Western countries would be seen by Russia as NATO's direct participation in the war, and that it would significantly change the nature of the conflict. And even just this past weekend, the Kremlin's official Telegram channel put out that Putin said, quote, "It would mean that NATO countries, the United States, European countries are at war with Russia," end quote.
Yeah, so World War III. That is World
Yeah,
War III. And
correct.
I actually I have a clip of Biden at that meeting you were talking about earlier with the UK Prime Minister. Oh my gosh. This is like it's just the guy needs to be done, okay? A reporter asks him about this threat from Putin, and he starts yelling at the reporter. So listen to this clip.
I say you be quiet until I speak, okay? That's what I say. Good idea?
Well, what do you say to Vladimir Putin's title law, sir? It's a serious thing.
You gotta be quiet. I'm gonna make a statement here, okay? All right, anyway, Mr. Prime Minister, welcome back to the White House. Often said, there's no issue of global consequence for the United States and the Great Britain Network haven't worked together. And we're gonna discuss some of these things right now. You first, Ukraine. I want to thank you for the UK's leadership in this front. The United States is committed to standing with you to help Ukraine as it defends against Russia's onslaught and aggression. Clear that Putin will not make it clear Putin will not prevail in this war. The people of Ukraine will prevail.
Okay, so he's like yells at the guy like multiple times. I don't know how much of that you could hear very clearly because he doesn't talk clearly, but he's yelling at the reporter and he's at a table with a bunch of people, including Jake Sullivan and Antony Blinken, that are sitting right next to him. They both looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. Like you could visibly see how awkward everyone felt. And then Biden just starts reading off the piece of paper in front of him. I mean, clearly stumbled through what he was reading. And it just left me with zero confidence that him or anyone in this administration is able to handle this escalation with Putin. I mean, it's laughable. Like, how much more confirmation do we need that voting for Kamala is dangerous for the entire world? And I just want to reiterate something that Putin said about Trump in July. He said, quote, "The fact that Trump says that he's ready and wants to stop the war in Ukraine, we take that very seriously. While I haven't seen his ideas on how exactly he's going to do that, and that is the key question, but I have no doubt that what he's that he says that sincerely and we support that," end quote. So translation, the grammar's a little off, but to me, this is Putin saying that he's ready and willing to negotiate with Trump. Trump built rapport with him. He takes Trump very seriously. The same cannot be said for Kamala or Biden or anyone in that administration. I mean, can you imagine her in a room with him? Like, she won't even talk to reporters without a script. How the hell is she going to negotiate with someone like Putin or Xi Jinping or Iran or any other country for that matter? Like, it's a total joke. Everyone knows she's not capable. So, anyhow, back to what you were talking about. How is Russia responding to this long range missile threat?
Well, on Saturday, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov gave a statement and said that if Kiev is allowed to fire Western supplied long range missiles into Russian territory, Russia will respond in a brutal way. He said, quote, "There's an element of serious risk here because the opponents in Washington, London, and other places clearly estimate the degree of danger of the game they continue to play." I think that's supposed to be underestimate, end quote. So what's crazy to me, like I said earlier, is we're not taking any of this seriously. Like the experts, I say that in air quotes, the experts keep saying that, oh, Putin's not going to do anything because he's afraid he can't afford a war with NATO. But realistically, you can only poke a bear so much before it attacks you. And we are poking a bear with nuclear capabilities that are on par with our own.
Yeah, so I have a conspiracy theory for why they continue to poke the bear. And this is entirely my own opinion, okay? I have no evidence to back it up. It's just a conspiracy theory, but to me it makes perfect sense. We have talked about this over and over again on the podcast, the insane amounts of money we're sending to this little non-NATO country, and we keep asking why. Because it's almost like they want to deplete our funds here in America, deplete our weaponry. They want to provoke World War III. So here's my theory. This is 100% on purpose, and it's the deep state's backup plan in case Trump does, in fact, get back into the White House. They all know Trump's going to go after them and will likely charge them criminally. I mean, it's clear they will do anything to keep him out for that reason. They want to protect themselves. So, what do you want to bet that if he does get in, these deep state people will flee to Ukraine, where I'm sure there's a ton of money they've embezzled from the, whatever, $150 billion we've sent there so far. You have BlackRock that's already got the contract to rebuild Ukraine. It's the human trafficking capital of the world. It has bioweapon labs. Now it has all this money and military equipment. Like it's the perfect safe haven for the corrupt deep state players that Trump will go after. And I took it upon myself to look up Ukraine's extradition laws. And guess what? The US and Ukraine do not have an extradition treaty. So if these people did flee there, he can't do a damn thing about it. So, like, am I just crazy, or does that not seem like a pretty likely plan on the off chance that Trump somehow overcomes all of their lawfare and assassination attempts and wins the White House?
No, I think you're 100% correct. And I actually had made notes about something related to this towards the end of the podcast. But Jake Sullivan announced over the weekend that we're working on a new substantial aid package for Ukraine. And it's going to be announced by the end of the month because the recent developments are of a quote unique concern. And he made it very clear. He said Biden is intending to put Ukraine in quote the best possible position to prevail, end quote, during his final months in office. So, and this is on the heels of the Department of Defense reporting a new $250 million aid package for Ukraine on September 6th. So do I think they're definitely setting up something like you just described if Trump gets in the White House? 100%.
Yeah, it's like I feel like every week there's a new aid package
Yeah.
and they just try to slide it under the radar so nobody really knows about it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you had mentioned Tucker Carlson earlier. So here's the clip I was talking about where he makes a case for the evil forces that are behind this.
And so any movement that seeks to convince people not to have children or eat or who provokes wars for the sake of killing. We often say, well, these people are all making money on wars. True, much deeper than that. If you're getting to the brink of nuclear war, and that isn't so horrifying to you that you do whatever you can to stop it, because of course it would mean the end of humanity. If your instant gut response isn't, we can't have that, whatever it takes to prevent that, we're going to do now. Because, of course, our obligation is to future generations. It's not to ourselves. It's to people yet unborn, human beings yet unborn. If that's not your gut reaction, then you're being controlled by something outside the human realm. Because that's not natural.
Okay, so
You know what? I was listening to that exact episode when I was walking the dog yesterday, and I was so fired up because I was like, he's 100% correct on this. Like, this is exactly what's happening.
yeah, I mean, you always hear like human nature is to survive, and this goes against it. I mean, it makes so much sense the way he says it. And it's like after everything we've learned about the military industrial complex, it's hard not to see that there are true evil people that have taken over the Democratic Party and are using the useful idiots like Kamala to do their bidding. So you have like former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard. She's talked about this war machine for years. And look at what they did to her. They put her on the terrorist watch list. And then, of course, RFK Jr., he's a former Democrat and he's been very outspoken about this. So I want to play a clip so we can hear something he said recently about the military industrial complex.
Biggest reason. I want to share with you the biggest reason that I stepped out of the presidential race to endorse Donald Trump. It's an issue so big that many people don't even want to look at it. And I'm talking about the slide toward nuclear war. You might remember back in the day when Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz and all those other guys were pushing for war in Iraq, war in Syria, war in Libya, war in Iran, and full spectrum U.S. military domination across the globe. These people were known as the neocons, and they have now taken over the Democratic Party. Right now, they're the ones who are pushing for maximum confrontation with Russia. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Russia is the world's largest nuclear power. Right now, our country is providing weapons trainings and targeting information for Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory with both infantry and with missiles. How would our country react if, say, Russia had bases on the Mexican border and was aiding Mexican armed forces to strike oil refineries and towns and nuclear power plants in Texas? If Russia gets desperate, they will use nuclear weapons, and Vladimir Putin has made this clear. That's the game that President Biden and the foreign policy establishment have been playing. They're gambling the future of our planet. And for what? For nothing. The endless wars of the neocons are bankrupting our nation. They're making us less safe at home and less safe abroad. It used to be that the Republicans were even more belligerent than the Democrats. Some of them still are, but not Donald Trump. I've had extensive conversations with him and his team. He understands the danger. He sees through the neocons now. He's going to de-escalate with Russia, and he's going to cancel the neocons' plans for wars with China and Iran too. I take him at his word, and I'm also going to keep him to his word. I need your support to help me do that. I need you to vote Donald Trump into the White House. Let's get him elected, and let's put an end to the war machine.
Yeah, so I mean, it's clear there's one presidential nominee that's talking about ending the war and one that's pushing it, you know? And I love how he said, like, imagine if Russia was set up in Mexico and they were talking about long-range missiles into the US. Like, what a
Right.
great way to look at it, you know? And I don't know about you, but just seeing all of these powerful players come together in what RFK Jr. refers to as the Justice League gives me so much hope, like more hope than I think I've ever had that the good guys may actually win. But I mean, obviously, it's a big battle because it seems like we have Europe that's operating under the same exact military industrial complex. So, Tara, you did a ton of research for this episode. Are there any European countries that are actually standing up against this war?
The only NATO country that seems to be even remotely outspoken about giving Zelensky the go ahead to use long range missiles being a bad idea is Germany. And it's kind of ironic because Germany, aside from the United States, Germany has supplied Ukraine with the second biggest amount of weapons. But on Saturday, Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that Germany won't be supplying long range precision weapons to Ukraine, regardless of what NATO allies decide to do, because he thinks it's a major escalation risk. And so he seems like the only person that has any common sense within NATO about what's going on with this fucking war.
Yeah. And I mean, they should be standing up and speaking out against it because they're the ones that are right there. They're in Europe, close to this conflict. Like, why would they want this? You know, and I think it's just important to know how crucial this election is in determining what happens with this war. And as I said last week, where Trump really shined in the debate was where he showed that he is the only one the only hope we have of the war actually ending. So, not to drudge up the debate, but I do want to play a clip of Trump during the debate where he very clearly stated that he wants the war ended and wants to stop more human lives from being lost. And keep in mind, the way that the moderator, David Muir, posed the question was by saying, well, if Ukraine doesn't win, then Russia will move further into Europe. Like, what a biased load of shit. Okay. But anyhow, here is Trump's response to that question.
Exactly, would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
They
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify.
I love how he's getting cut off before he could even finish.
I know, but I love that you let that play to the point where he kept asking you, where the fuck is Biden?
Yeah, seriously. And okay, this pissed me off more than anything. The entire time he's talking, Kamala is literally laughing at him. She's laughing. Like, I'm sorry, Kamala, but the American people don't think war is funny. We don't think sending $150 billion and counting to Ukraine is funny. We don't think about the possibility of our kids being drafted as funny. We don't think the risk of nuclear annihilation is funny. Like, what the fuck is she laughing at? She's just like, she's so despicable. I can't stand the woman. And I know I'm not the only one that was completely disgusted by her laughter on probably the most serious issue they talked about during the debate.
Yeah.
It's like unfreaking believable. Now, what's interesting is ABC News only posted a 20-second clip of Kamala's response to the war question. Why would that be? Well, maybe it's because she makes it clear that she is a warmongering puppet for the military-industrial complex, or perhaps it's because she revealed something very illegal in her response. So, ABC News didn't post it on their TikTok, but I, of course, found the full clip and the parts that ABC edited out. So let's go ahead and hear her response to that question.
In chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin? And would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris.
Okay, so wait, I'm confused. Is Trump the dictator and Hitler and the one that's going to lead us to war, or is he the one that's just going to give up and end the war? Because,
Right.
like, my God, make up your mind. But that's not what I want to talk about with that clip, because the thing that's going around social media like crazy is that Kamala very clearly stated that she shared American intelligence with a non-NATO country, which is very illegal. And so I don't know. Do you think that's why ABC News just decided that they're not going to post that part of the clip on their page?
You know what? When I listened to the debate, I didn't catch that at all. Nor did I mean, it didn't even cross
I
my
didn't
mind.
either until social media brought it up.
But if that's true, that it's illegal to share American intelligence with a non-NATO country, shouldn't that be fucking grounds for her to be like, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for?
Doubt? I don't know. Treason?
No, treason. Thank you.
Yeah, it's treason.
Yeah,
It is.
That's fucking treason.
Yes.
Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
But of course, ABC News is just going to gloss over that. They're not going to fact check that. They're not going to. I mean, could you imagine like if Trump said the same thing? But of course, they don't care because the left can get away with whatever they want. They could break the law. Look at what's happening at the border. That's treason. Nobody cares when it's the left.
Is anybody in Congress doing an investigation into this? I mean, most of Congress is part of the military industrial complex anyway, but, for all of their, pointless investigations that go nowhere, shouldn't they be doing a fucking investigation into this?
Well, you would think, you would sure as hell think. I haven't heard of them doing that. But even if they did, it's pointless. It's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to do anything to her or the Biden administration.
No, and what's also concerning that people aren't talking about is the reports about Russia and Iran working together. And uh, allegedly, Russia is trading nuclear bomb secrets to Iran in exchange for missiles. And these two countries have been working closely together since the start of the war. Iran has already given Russia drones, and they've reportedly helped Russia set up a factory to produce their own drones. And according to the Daily Mail, last week, the US and the UK declassified intelligence reports revealing that Putin had accepted a shipment of ballistic missiles from, excuse me, from Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken talked about this in London last week. And he said that Russia has been sharing technology secrets with Iran. And as a result of this missile shipment to Russia, Iran Air has been banned from flying over or landing in Britain. And Russian shipping companies have been sanctioned for transporting these weapons. And we already know that Iran has been escalating their nuclear capability for months, which we've talked about in previous episodes when we've talked about the Israel Palestine conflict that's now spread to multiple Middle East countries. And then there's the growing alliance with China and North Korea. And this is all being called like an axis of upheaval. And we've got North Korea already currently supplying Russia with ammunition. Kim Jong un has reportedly vowed to back Putin unconditionally on the war in Ukraine, just like we have Biden vowing to continue to back Ukraine. And uh, another thing that happened over the weekend is after this meeting between Biden and Starmer, I guess Starmer then went to Italy and he's trying to get Maloney to agree to use these long range missiles in Ukraine. So my question is, why the fuck is Britain pushing so hard to get Ukraine to fucking piss off Russia?
Well, I think that Britain is a huge source. I think that's where the military industrial complex started back in the day. You know, like I think they're all in on it. It's not just a US thing. It is a European thing and it's based, I think, in Britain. That's my guess.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. We're not at a good place right now. This is scary.
no, we're not at a good place at all.
So I think looking at everything we talked about today, it's plain as day, like why we need a strong leader like Trump. And I want to point out something interesting that Newsweek actually mentioned. They said, according to ABC News TikTok page, in which Trump and Harris's closing statements were both uploaded back to back. And I went and looked at this. It's absolutely the case. Trump's closing statement got 24.7 million views and 1.7 million likes. Kamala's closing statement only got 4.7 million views and only 220,000 likes. Like, it's insane. And so I think I sent you the screen recording, Tara, but I was like scrolling through the comments
Yeah.
on both posts. Almost every single one of them were pro Trump and anti Kamala. And I mean, I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And this is the ABC News, like official TikTok page. This isn't some random account. And that's supposed to be way more left leaning, the people that follow that news outlet. And you got to think this is on TikTok. This is supposed to be Kamala's base where she's like brat summer and like everybody loves her. But clearly, it's all bullshit because regardless of what they actually said during the debate, people could see what life was like under Trump versus Kamala. And no one wants ongoing wars. You know, we need to elect the man that actually had peace and no new wars under his administration. Obviously, that's Trump. Preventing World War III and nuclear war is more important than abortion. It's more important than voting for a woman. And based on what we're seeing in the social media comments, the posts, all of these social media polls that include millions of people, it appears that the majority of Americans agree. And if that's not enough, even leftist CNN is saying so. So I want to end with a clip from CNN, and this is after the debate. Listen to this.
Polling Democrat against Donald Trump in history on national polls. No one is performing worse than her. No one's performing worse than her among blacks, among Hispanics, the worst performing Democrat in modern history among those demographics, worst performing polling wise among Jews. She is losing key factions of the Democratic base. Muslim voters, she's at under 50, she's at 52% in the latest CARE poll among black Muslims. She is not doing well.
I don't know, Tara. Does that give you some renewed hope? Gives me hope.
Well, it's also like that. What was it? A couple days ago, there was a CNN reporter that basically called out Kamala HQ account on like 8 different times where she was lying about shit. Like, and that was coming
Yes.
from someone at CNN, which totally shocked me.
Yep. Yeah, they've been calling her out left and right. I don't know what's up with that, but I don't think it's a good sign when, you know, one of the most left-leaning networks is constantly calling her out. And, you know, it's a good sign for Trump. But of course, she's got the military industrial complex behind her. So,
Well, I was going to say, this gives me hope as long as Trump stays alive.
and we're not like in World War III. So,
Right.
I mean, a lot can happen in, the next, what are we at, like 50 days or whatever. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, we'll be back here with the latest. We'll probably have more information, I'm assuming, on the assassination attempt. So everyone, just stay tuned. We'll see you back here on Wednesday. And thanks for tuning in.